Another very powerful tool we find within the Data tab of Excel is the ability to convert text to columns and use flash fill. What these functions will do is they enable us to take a column of data, such as this one, and convert it into multiple columns. In this situation, we just have an email address, and that is in itself a perfectly valid field. But I notice in my list that my sales rep is only listed by surname and doesn't have a first name. I might potentially want to be able to filter or work with the first name of the sales rep as well as the surname of the sales rep. So what I'd effectively like to do is to be able to extract the first name from this column of data. I want to be able to split out the Adam, the Jones, and potentially the rest of the email address. So first of all, let's have a look at text columns. What I'm intending to do is take one column and split it into multiple columns. So it's important to remember this function will only work with one column. And if I select multiple columns, Excel will not allow me to use this functionality. So starting with just my one column, I can then move over to text columns, and I will be given a prompt. What we are striving to do here is to split up the information within one column into multiple ones. But for that to happen, we need to tell Excel how to split the data. And we have two options available. We can do it by a delimited character, such as a comma or a tab, or we can do it based on width. Splitting our data based on width is effective where all of our data is in a perfect column block. Every bit of the data is equally spaced. But in our list here, we have email addresses of different lengths. This type of data won't lend itself well to using fixed width, as the widths are continuously different. So I'm going to proceed using a delimiter. I can also see by looking at my data that a delimiter will work, because every part of the email that I want to split apart is divided by either a full stop or the @ sign. So let's proceed with delimited and click Next. By default, Excel tries to split our data by tab, but in this situation, I need it to split the data based on a different delimiter. I'm going to use the other box, and within my other, I am going to type the full stop. We can now see that Excel is giving us a preview of what will happen to our data. That is, where the full stop lies between the first name and the second name, Excel will produce a divider. And again, where the full stop is at the end of the email address, the .com will be divided. Let's proceed and move into the next. From here we can assign different types of properties to our newly created columns. Remember, we are taking one column and generating multiple ones. So from here we can decide how we want to format these new columns. The data we are using is all text-based, so actually I don't need to apply any kind of special formatting, although I could. I could, for example, format as a date. I don't need to change any of these options, so I'm just going to use the Finish button. And here we can see that Excel has taken the single column we had originally and split out the first name from the surname followed by the name of the company, part of the email. If I wanted to subdivide this again, I can. First of all, I'll need to create space for my newly created columns to come. So I'm going to insert a blank column. Now I'll take my newly created column and split it again, using text to columns, using a delimiter, and now this time in my other box I will add the @ sign. Again, we can see in the preview that Excel is going to correctly find that @ sign and divide the data where the @ sign was found. I can change my formatting options, but I'm happy with the results, so I'll just go to Finish. Now we've completely separated out the data, and I have my 4 columns. First name, last name, name of the company, and a .com. Text to columns has a wide variety of applications and is an incredibly useful tool for splitting out data from specific columns. Let's now have a look at a different way to achieve a similar result, using something called flash fill, a feature just recently introduced in Excel 2013. To examine this flash fill function, I'm going to undo my actions and go back to my original point. I'm going to start by naming my new column. And then I'm simply going to start typing. I'm going to type the first name from my email. After I type the second name on the second row, Excel automatically kicks into action using flash fill and recognizes the pattern of the data entry. It can see that I'm using Adam from the email address on the first row and Kenny from the email address on the second row, automatically predicting how I want to interpret the rest of the column. If I'm happy with this result, I can simply use the Enter key and Excel will flash fill the information into the column. If flash fill fails to generate the preview automatically, we can simply use the flash fill button to force Excel to look for a pattern. In this case, it's telling me it can't find a pattern because it's already performed a flash fill. Let's try this again with the surname. Again, Excel recognizes a pattern and automatically generates a flash fill. Let's escape out of that cell. Let's try and manually force the flash fill by using the button. And we can say that by forcing the flash fill, Excel has looked for a pattern in the data and has extracted the surname. A very useful and handy feature. So those are two simple ways of dividing one column of data into multiple columns. Later on in the video series, we'll look at how we can even use formulas to achieve a similar effect.